explain to us what on earth you did.
Sure. The simulations, the practice before the surgery for 6 months, that was virtual reality.
Okay.
We're not quite there yet. Perhaps in another 10 years, I'll be coming back and telling you we actually did it in VR. But this time around, it was the practice sessions, all the various steps that we would need to undertake in the final surgery. We practiced all of that in virtual reality, which was a huge advance.
I mean, this is a huge moment in terms of the treatment of conjoined twins. I read that you've described it as a man on the moon kind of moment, and it's very much been led, I mean, a team of 100 experts being led by you, based out of Great Ormond Street. We're very lucky to have you in the studio. I believe you come straight from the flight from Brazil and indeed went straight from theatre to that flight, so straight hot off the press, as it were. For someone as experienced as you and someone who's done all the virtual reality training ahead of the surgery, were you still nervous doing the operation?
Oh, absolutely. It's the 6th set of twins that we've separated successfully. But with every set, the risks are still the same. This is very high-risk surgery. And although we understand it a bit more than we did 20 years ago, there is a lot we still don't understand. And it's a rather difficult position to be in, to be the global expert, to be called upon from various corners of the world and not to know all the answers. So one of the key things that we're trying to do here with Gemini Untwined, our charity, is to do further research and understand how best to help these kids. Because whilst we're celebrating this particular set, as we speak, there are other children, other families around the globe that need this service, that need our support, need our help.
So do you need a world centre of expertise for that, then, so that you can actually really assess how to treat varying difficulties of operation with a set of experts together?
Precisely. You've hit the nail on the head there. What we're doing here is it's like the National Health Service that we have in this country feeding a global health service, because these conditions are super rare. There's no one team or one country that has enough experience to be able to do them better and improve the odds for these kids. So what we've done by setting up the charity Gemini Untwined 4 years ago is to pool that global experience. So it doesn't really matter where these kids are born, where these families are. We're studying them, trying to understand how best to help, and then reaching out, linking up with the local teams, and then improving the odds for these kids. But like I said, there are other children out there we need to carry on helping. So we do need the support of Britain to support the charity as a perfect example of the NHS, of the research.
I mean, would Great Ormond Street be able to fill that role?
It has. We are, by default, the global leaders in this kind of work at the moment. And that's the backstory, how the NHS supports Great Ormond Street, how the research ecosystem within UCL and the wider healthcare sector in the UK, in tech, has helped deliver this result for children 11 hours away from us.
Yeah, and so presumably your team and you as well could easily be travelling anywhere in the world to do another one of these at some point in the not-too-distant future. But I want to focus in on Bernardo and Arthur Lima in Rio specifically. They are both 3 years old, which is quite old, I presume, for this kind of surgery. And the prognosis for twins having this kind of surgery is worse the older they are.
Correct.
You want to get in there as soon as possible. What's the future look like for them? Because you've successfully managed to separate their fused brains. And there's this lovely photograph of them holding hands together in the way twins so often do, but side by side.
Indeed.
For the first time. How are they doing?
It's still early days. You know, we did the final separation 7 weeks ago. So far, they're making good progress, but we do need to wait for a few more months before we can prognosticate better. And you're absolutely right. This surgery has to happen in an ideal world under the age of 1, because the children adapt and recover so much better when it's done early. The issue with this particular set was COVID, complicated matters for them. So whilst they were presented to their local hospital 2.5 years ago, Brazil was under lockdown like the rest of the world, and the local team couldn't really access our support during COVID, hence the delays.
So what would you want the charity to do then to enable, as you say, very young babies to be flown to Britain to have the operation, or for you and a team to get out to wherever they are?
Yeah, perfect question. If they have the infrastructure to deliver this kind of service in their home country, then absolutely our vision is to disseminate this knowledge. We're not a beacon tower that needs to pull everything here. That's not the idea. It's really dissemination of knowledge globally. That's the primary aim. In certain circumstances, if the technical platforms aren't there, if the infrastructure isn't there, then yes, we'll have to get these kids either over here, or the third option would be, if we're thinking about, for example, Southeast Asia, linking up with a centre closer to their home country, perhaps in Australia, and then supporting them deliver something like this. It's very much a global health service that's run from Gemini.
And Dr. Bernardo and Arthur, they shared this fused brain, but presumably the next surgery that you perform could be a different part of the head or the body where the twins could be joined. So how, much replication can there be, or does each case need different type of techniques? I mean, you talk about using these virtual reality systems to help you train, but, how much will that necessarily help?
So the platforms, the work we do is very specialised, but the platforms that we use, the virtual reality platforms, are accessible and used right across the spectrum, whether we're talking about neurosurgery, craniofacial surgery, or other types of surgery. So the learnings that we take from these cases really feed a lot of the more routine neurosurgery work that we do.
I'm just looking at one of the quotes here. After the operation, I felt I had pushed myself right to the limit. I wish someone could pick me up and put me on the plane. I mean, you were there, what, literally holding a scalpel, or do you have other, robotic techniques that you can use, or is it still that you've got to have that expertise in your fingers?
Still very much there at the cutting edge with a scalpel or other instruments in my hand. Dr. Gabriel, my counterpart there, was, the two of us were there all the way through it. It went on for a bit longer than expected. We were expecting the second stage, the final stage, to last perhaps 12 to 16 hours, but it was a bit longer, so we had to work. Well, we started Thursday morning at around 6:30 and carried on through till Friday morning. And I had to get on a flight a few hours later. So,
and you've got to keep the concentration, absolutely.
You have to. So you manage to do it as it's happening, but the minute they're separated and they're safe, you zone in back into your own self, and there's very little left to, get you to the plane.